Tattvabodh means knowledge of the self or knowledge of the essence. Tattva is essence, bodha is knowledge. So it is knowledge of the essence or knowledge of the self. Some of you have written essence of knowledge and so many different answers have come. But answers are these two, either of them. Tattvabodh is written by Adi Shankaracharya, not by Swami Tejomayananda. Two types of achievements in the world are not material and spiritual. They are gaining what has not been gained and gaining what has already been gained. Apraptasya prapti and praptasya prapti. Praman, prameya and pramata, or knower, known and the means of knowledge are the three factors required to gain knowledge. Knower, known and the means of knowledge. Some of you have written open mind, humility and one more answer is there. Desire. Praman, pramata, prameya. Knower, known and the means of knowledge. Vedas are called Apaurusheya Grantha. Apaurusheya means they are not composed by a human being. They are revelations. One. Some people have written it called as Shruti Grantha. So I have given marks saying, okay, you have written Shruti, so fine. Veda is called Shruti. But actual answer is Apaurusheya Grantha. Dharma and Brahman are the main topics of the Vedas. Don't write happiness, goal in life and something. Dharma and Brahman. Upanishad, Brahma Sutra and Bhagavad Gita are called Prasthanatrayi. They are three fundamental books of Vedanta: Upanishad, Brahma Sutra and Bhagavad Gita. Tattvabodh is a Prakarana Grantha. For worldly achievements we require knowledge plus action. For self-knowledge we require only knowledge, no action. Conviction and clarity and introspection, none of those answers are appropriate. Because this is in context. If you have studied the commentary, you will know this very clearly. This is to make us aware that for anything which we have not gained, we require knowledge plus action. That I don't have this knowledge and then I have to put efforts to gain. But what we already have, like the example of the mala, I don't have to put action. I have to only know, okay, this is already there. That's it. So only knowledge is required. Now next question, a lot of you have written Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samveda, Atharvaveda. See the question. Dash, 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 dash are the four parts of each Veda. Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samveda, Atharvaveda are four different Vedas. Each of these Vedas have four parts. Mantra, Aranyaka, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad. Or Vedanta. Upanishad or Vedanta is same. Mantra, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad. I have given that also in 14th one. When I said the question paper, I said some of the answers are given away. I said let us see in spite of that. But people didn't take the cue at all. Anyway, so Mantra, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad or Vedanta. Four types of thinking are no thinking, wrong thinking, partial thinking, right thinking. Dash in thinking and dash in feeling. Clarity in thinking and purity in feeling. Don't write integration of purity and integration of feeling and thinking and so many other answers have come. Clarity in thinking, purity in feeling. Dash and dash are two types of desires. Don't write material and spiritual. I don't know, for a lot of things people have just written material, spiritual, material, spiritual. Natural and cultivated. Mantra portion has hymns. Hymns dedicated to nature. Somebody wrote bhajan. Hymns dedicated to nature. Brahmana portion has rituals for desire fulfillment. And Aranyaka portion has upasana or meditations for single pointedness. So if you have written hymn, ritual, meditation, that is fine. True or false? Object to be known is called pramana. False. Object to be known is called as prameya, not pramana. Pramana is means of knowledge. I am just giving you correct answer. You don't have to, in your answer sheet, if you have written false, that's the correct answer. Then direct perception is called as paroksha pramana. False. Direct perception is called pratyaksha pramana. In one or two papers I saw, they have written pratyaksha is equal to paroksha. Pratyaksha is not equal to paroksha. Pratyaksha pramana is separate from paroksha pramana. So direct perception is pratyaksha pramana. Shabda praman is science of sound. False. Shabda praman is a means of knowledge for self-knowledge. So it is not science of sound. Various, see, mantras, rituals, those are all science of sound. When we say Shabda praman in terms of the self-knowledge, it is not science of sound. Means of knowing an object is called pramana. True. Veda Vyasa composed the Vedas. False. He compiled the Vedas. He did not compose. He did not write all of them as his own compositions. They were revelations to him and to other great saints. Vedas are called Paurushaya Grantha or work of great saints and authors. False. Dharma is covered elaborately in Jnana Kanda of the Vedas. False. In Jnana Kanda of the Veda, Brahma Vidya is covered mainly. Upanishads and Vedanta are different. False. Prakarana Granthas are the main textbooks of Vedanta. False. Which are the main textbooks? Shastra or the Vedas. Sorry, Upanishads, not just the Vedas. Upanishads are the main text because I have asked the question as Vedanta. So Upanishads are the main text of Vedanta and Prakarana Granthas are the introductory or the preparatory texts. Vedanta is a journey from the known to the unknown. False. Self is not unknown to us. So Vedanta is actually a journey from the notion of the unknown to the known, what is already known to us. Or from the so-called unknown to the known. Now when did the desire for happiness begin in us? It is beginningless or from birth. Either of these two answers are correct. No, any other answer is not appropriate there. Don't say it is our nature and all that. What is the nature of happiness that we seek? Now the question here may be a little ambiguous to some people. So I have given some marks for people who have written some different answers. The nature of happiness that we really seek is permanent happiness, eternal happiness, infinite happiness. If some of you have written generally we seek temporary happiness, then I have given you 1 mark for it. But the real answer which we seek is what we really seek is permanent happiness. Why can't we give up the desire for happiness? Most of you have written this wrong. Why can't we give up the desire for happiness? You cannot write there because it is our nature. How can desire for happiness be our nature? That means it can never be fulfilled. Only correct answer for that is nature. Why can't we give up the desire for happiness? Because it is a natural desire, not a cultivated desire. A cultivated desire can be given up. A natural desire cannot be given up unless one transcends it or fulfills it.
Our nature.
That's what I'm saying. It is wrong. Desire for happiness is not our nature. Happiness is our nature. If desire becomes our nature, can we be free from desire? Think about it. If desire becomes my nature, we can never be free from it. We will never get moksha. It's not a question of technical, it's a question of clarity. That desire for happiness is not equal to happiness. You see, desire for happiness is not there in sleep. But our nature as happiness is there in sleep or not? It is there. So that clarity one must have there. The desire for happiness, why can't I give up? Because it is a natural desire. It is not a cultivated desire. Simple, that is the only answer for it. And some of you have written both. Because it is our nature and so it is a natural desire. Now there is a difference between nature and natural desire. So then I have given you 1 mark for that correct answer and wrong for the half answer which is wrong. What are the 5 natural desires that can't be given up? Even here is the cue. Best part is you have written there. Some of you have written there the desire for happiness and knowledge and immortality and greatness and freedom. And yet the answer above is wrong. So these are 5 natural desires. Amritatva, Sukha, Ananda, not Ananda, what is that? Gyan, Moksha and Mahanta. 5. Happiness is not in the objects. Prove using logic and daily experience. Very simple answer for this. Number 1, if happiness was in the object, everybody would have experienced the same happiness through the object. Number 2, the object will give me continuously the same happiness every time I engage with it. But happiness is changing. Law of diminishing return, some of you have written, which is also fine. And give an example. So some of you have given example. I eat first chocolate, second chocolate, fifth cigarette chocolate, or rasgulla or whatever. Something you have given there. Car and home and so many things.
So मुझे ये 5 जरा repeat करेंगे. ज्ञान, मोक्ष, महानता.
Amritatva,
Happiness is Anand.
Jnana, Moksha, Mahanta, Amritatva, Sukha or Anand. Yeah. Now, some people here in this question, they have written because happiness is temporary, we keep seeking it and every time new desire arises and we are running behind desire. That doesn't prove that happiness is not in the object. We have to have clarity that why we say happiness is not in the object. Because the same object doesn't give happiness to everybody. To same person also it doesn't give same degree of happiness. And give 2 examples for it. Or 1 example for it. Over. How can we say that happiness is our nature? Give at least 3 reasons. Again this question has a lot of confusion. Happiness is our nature. So many reasons I have just told you to give 3. Number 1 is if we have concluded the above properly that happiness is not in the object, by the Parishesha Nyaya, by the law of remainder, we understand that if happiness is not outside, it is my nature. 1. 2. Happiness is the pursuit which we all have in and through whatever we do. So whatever I am doing, I am seeking only happiness. That's the basic pursuit. 3. That happiness is not a burden to me. 4. I don't strive to get out of the state of happiness. But whenever I am out of happiness, I strive to get back to that state. Five, even when the mind is dormant in deep sleep, I am still happy. In these five, you can give any three reasons. It will be clear to you that happiness is our nature. See, don't treat this as only some informative knowledge. That okay, I understood 5 points. This is for our conviction and clarity. The more we understand that happiness is not in the world outside and it is my nature, the more independent we will be, the more quieter we will be, less craving in our heart, less going out, extrovertedness, less dependency. So it will make a change. The moment there is a transformation in the conviction, it will change many things. So don't take it as an informative, okay, for the test 5 points I understood. Don't keep it objective, make it subjective. What are the two fundamental false beliefs that we have which are negated by Vedanta? I am the body, world is real. These are the two fundamental beliefs which are wrong. If you say happiness is in the world outside and I am running in the world outside, I have given wrong for it because that is a secondary belief. Only when I think world is real, then I will think happiness is in that and then I am running behind it. So the cause is considering the world as real and myself as this body, mind and intellect. What are the limitations of temporary happiness? Now some people have written, it is temporary. Or you have given the meaning for it, that it does not last long. We need the reasoning that why are we saying, what is the limitation of temporary happiness? Number one, it does not fulfill my sense of emptiness. Number two, it increases the craving, so new desires keep coming up. Number three, there is a lot of tension and stress and strain to attain it and to preserve it. Number four, there is fear of losing. Number five, I get attached to it. Number six, it makes a person more and more extroverted. Number seven, happiness is outside and future being uncertain, my happiness is also uncertain. So temporary happiness has these limitations. And most important one, I don't know whether I said earlier, but most important one is chasing temporary happiness, we lose the entire human life and an opportunity to know that permanent happiness as my nature is gone. So temporary happiness actually makes me compromise the very purpose of human life. That I could have got moksha in this human life, but because I am running behind the temporary objects and things and situations and people, I don't turn within, so I don't get moksha. So 8 reasons I have given you now. Any 3 you were right, or any 2 you have written, I have given you proper full marks for it. Now what are common means of knowledge? See, this is based on Tattva Bodh. So many people have written meditation, listening and seva and something one has written. Common means of knowledge is 3. As far as Tattva Bodh, what you have studied this much in 2 sessions, direct perception, which means through the senses, what I see, hear, taste, smell, touch, direct perception. Or even feeling wise, I'm feeling anger right now, happiness right now, love right now, that's direct perception. Or an intellectual state, which I am going through right now, that is direct perception. So direct perception, don't think is limited only to the seeing, observation. Anything experienced by the senses, mind, intellect, that is called direct perception. Second is inference. What I cannot directly see right now, but I am seeing the effect of it. So the example of the fire and the smoke, or the rain and the wet road. So many examples you can give, you can infer. And third is Shabda Praman or verbal testimony. So first part of the first question, you have to write these three: direct perception, inference or verbal testimony. Which means is used for self-knowledge is the third one, verbal testimony or Shabda Praman. And then why? A lot of you have not answered why. You have written Shabda Praman and you have written the three Pramans, but you have not written why. So why self-knowledge only, Shabda Praman only is used for self-knowledge? Because it is not available for perception. Self is not an object for perception. And nor self can be inferred. Because inference also is based on direct perception. So the revelation of the great rishis or the knowledge of the Veda is the direct means for me to recognize. Like the mala which is there, somebody has to tell me, in this case limitation of example, because mala is a gross thing which I can see and understand, but that's a limitation of example. So somebody has to tell me, and the moment somebody tells me ki the mala is already on your neck, then I realize it instant. Same way when the mind is ready and the knowledge is given, person knows the truth. So that is the ninth one. 10th one, what is the state of fulfillment? So where there are no desires, having attained which nothing more remains to be attained. Some people have written state of Satchit Ananda, some people have written the state of complete happiness, all that is fine. So what is the state of fulfillment is that? Why is Vedanta not merely an intellectual exercise? Yeah, so now here, the point to be understood is, Vedanta is not just an intellectual exercise, because it is one has to integrate our emotion with it. Vedanta invokes emotion of surrender and devotion in our heart. Also it is about becoming aware of our feeling, the feeling of emptiness, the feeling of limitation of the sense objects outside. So it is not merely an intellectual exercise. The more I feel and integrate my feeling and thinking, the better will be my seeking. So that's the main answer. Some people have written about holistic growth, it helps to grow holistically, but that answer is not clear. If you just write holistic growth, what does that mean? It can, that school also, a lot of people say our school gives holistic education, you admit your child here. What does that mean? That means a different thing altogether. They have sports and academics and so many competitions and different things they mean by that. So what is expected here is the simple answer that it is also about feeling and integrates my feeling, thinking and acting. Why do we feel empty? Two main reasons. One, we identify with what is incomplete. So our body, mind and intellect. False identification with body, mind, intellect makes us feel empty. Two, the world is constantly changing. Hence, even if I get fulfillment of a desire, again I feel empty. Because it can't satisfy me. Either of the two answers, if you have written, I have given you full marks. Even if I know that happiness is my nature, still I don't realize it. Why? So some of the answers here have come because I don't know the self, because of ignorance. Those are not correct answers. Because the answer given there is, question given there is, even if I know, which means that I know now that happiness is my nature or self is my nature, still why I am not realizing? So the only correct answer for that is, purity of mind is not there. Some people have written clarity is not there, purity is not there, which is okay. Because if knowledge, the means of knowledge is there, the knower also is there, yet knowledge is not arising, is because there is some problem in the means. The known is there, knower is there, means is also there. But still knowledge is not arising. Why? Because there is some problem with the means. So purity of mind is not there, hence the person still doesn't know it. Some of you have written because we are extroverted, because we have desires, because we have attachment. So I have given you half mark, means 1 mark for it, 2 marks or 1 mark for it I have given. Main reason is purity of mind is not there, or selflessness is not there, devotion or surrender is not there. Those are the main answers. Why is the self not known through inference? Number 1, inference is based on direct perception and self is not available for direct perception. Number 2, in the case of inference, the knower and the known are separate. Like the person who is seeing the smoke is separate from the fire and the smoke. So in case of inference, the knower and the known are separate. But in case of the self, the knower and the known are the same. These two are the main reasons actually. And third reason, little subtle one, only one person wrote that actually, is through inference I can only gain the knowledge about that existence of that thing, but the nature of that thing I will not know. So I can infer that fire is there, but I will not know the nature of that fire there, the intensity of the fire there, the amount of destruction that fire has caused, all that I will not know. Same way by inference we can say that okay, self exists, but the nature of self is happiness, that is my nature, that cannot be known by inference, that can be known only by gaining knowledge through Shabda Praman. And the next page also has a question. At least 50% has not attempted that only.
मैंने तो ध्यान ही नहीं करा.
That's what I am saying.
5 minutes before I.
Majority has not attempted it only. And those of you who have attempted, there is a lot of confusion in that cycle. So I am going to go through that cycle again. Please, I have given you the printout also, no, last year. This cycle of ignorance is very, very important to learn. In this, there cannot be any confusion, absolutely. So, when we say a cycle, it does not mean only the cyclic part. Cause is also important for us. So some of you have written only the round part. The top three portions are necessary. You can reduce the color. First and foremost is ignorance of the self, called avidya. Some of you have jumped straight from ignorance to vasana. So ignorance of the self, when there is ignorance of the self, when I don't know who I am, then I always misunderstand myself to be something else. So there is a false identification with the body, mind and intellect. That is called Dehatma Bhava. In Gurudev's words it is, whenever there is non-apprehension, there will be misapprehension. So if I don't see a rope as a rope, then I will see the rope as snake or a crack in the earth or some dead, some garland which has got spoiled, something. So I don't see something as it is, then it is not that I don't see it. I see something else in its place. Non-apprehension always leads to misapprehension. So when I don't know who am I, then I will misunderstand myself to be body, mind, intellect. And whenever I identify with the body, mind, intellect, I feel incomplete, apurnata. So whenever I am not identified with it, whether it is in deep sleep or in meditation or in complete absorption, then I don't feel the sense of emptiness or incompleteness. Now whenever I feel incomplete, then I want to become complete. So I will try to seek that completeness from something other than me. So that is, how will I seek what I seek? That is dependent on my tendency. Somebody will seek in movies, somebody will seek in a satsang, somebody will seek in food. Why each one seeks differently? Though the sense of incompleteness is the same, everybody feels incomplete, everybody has false identification with body and ignorance. These top three things are common to all. That's why they are kept out of the cycle, out of the circular part. Because these three are common to all of us. What creates the difference in all of us is our tendencies. Now these tendencies or vasanas, now there is a difference between samskar and a vasana. Because some of you have written samskar leads to vasana, leads to desire, leads to something like that one has gone. Technically speaking, a samskar which is repeated again and again becomes a vasana. So you have to write only vasana, that's enough. Either you write vasana or tendencies, that is enough. Now these tendencies, they are unmanifest. They will manifest as a desire in our heart or in our intellect. So desire is kama. Only when they manifest as desire do I know that I have these vasanas in me. Now when there is a desire, there will be thoughts. We come to recognize our desire, our emotions in terms of thoughts. So some of you have jumped straight from desire to result. Thought and action is gone in between. Or some of you have jumped from desire to action. So desire can be one, but to fulfill that one desire, thoughts can be many. So desire leads to thought. Sustained thought will lead to action. And when that action I do, I will get a result. That is karma phala. Now the result being temporary, again it will leave an impression in my mind, favorable or unfavorable. So now this cycle goes on. From tendency to tendency, this cycle goes on. This whole cycle itself is based on ignorance. So if you don't write ignorance and you write only from tendency to desire, thought, action, result, then that itself is wrong. Because the cause is not mentioned.
So Swamiji, repeated impressions make the desire, or they are the same?
No, some repeated impression makes a strong tendency, which will then manifest obviously as a desire. Like every Sunday if you come, so many of you are coming from, you have done many courses here on Sunday. Now repeatedly you have been coming, so now whenever there is no class on Sunday, then the mind feels, there is no class. Because now that samskar has become a channel, it's a vasana. Now that will sprout as a desire. Any other doubts in this?
Swami,
One by one.
The tendency is even as a child you are born with, like in young age you have the tendency. So
Yeah.
those are how in this world.
Yeah.
So there is a stage.
That's what we say, continuity is there. No? Even as a child there are
First
tendencies,
impression, repeated.
because that is the continuity of life. From past life one is carrying it forward. Otherwise there is no other explanation. If we don't take the explanation of karma and reincarnation, then I am depending on the point of chance. Saying I am like this just like got created without any effect, without any cause, I am just an effect which came into being. See, which is not acceptable when we see logic and cause and effect. So it has come from previous birth.
So you mentioned about sleep, that in sleep we are in a state of happiness, and can you elaborate on that, because sleeps are having different modes and different cycles of sleep, so how?
So that Tattvabodh will speak more about it. When I use the word sleep, it always means dreamless sleep, deep sleep. The cycles and all that happen for the dream. So from waking one goes to dream, from dream one goes to dreamless sleep, and again comes back to dream, again goes to dreamless sleep. So this keeps happening. Again one comes back to waking, depending on again all this happens according to one's karma. So more details I will speak when we come to the point. In Tattvabodh the three states will be analyzed, waking, dream, deep sleep. So that time we will take up more details. Because certain background is necessary before that.
Swami, that first ignorance of self, false identification and incomplete, those are simultaneous, not step by step. Once I am ignorant of the self, directly this false identification and incompleteness and tendencies, these are simultaneous, no? Not step by step.
Yeah, we have given step by step for clarity and understanding.
But that is the straight line, it goes in straight line, no?
Yeah, that will go in straight line only. It's in straight line.
It's
one by one.
simultaneous.
You can understand it as simultaneous because a lot of these are simultaneous. Desire and thought also is simultaneous. See, but we have given it like this for our clarity of understanding. Ki what is subtler is always the cause, and then the grosser is the effect.
The moment I am ignorant of the self, the vasanas will be there. The vasanas will be created. The things.
Depending on my identification with the body. Yeah, all those.
And
Can you just explain this incompleteness, the step between the vasana and...
So whenever I identify with anything which is incomplete, then only I feel incomplete. So in the state of deep sleep, when I am not identified with the body, mind, intellect, I don't feel incomplete. Now body has, why we say body is incomplete? Because body is limited, no? From physically also the body is from the head to the toes. And whatever enjoyment the body can go through also is limited. Emotions are also limited. And because they continuously change, that itself shows their limitation. Thoughts also. So more I identify with incomplete, more incomplete I feel.
So it is like because of my avidya, I identify with something which is BMI.
Yes.
And because I identify with BMI, I feel incomplete. And because I feel incomplete, I have tendencies.
Correct.
So everything is because.
Yeah, that's why each one is the
Leading to the
cause leading to the effect. Again that becomes the cause, again that becomes leads to another effect. It goes on.
But if I do good like selfless action, then also it leaves a result because of which it goes to us.
Even a good action will leave a impression on the mind.
And that's
But it will leave a sattvic impression on the mind, which will help a person to reduce one's identification, get to more satsang and become more introvert and quiet, and through that gain the knowledge and go out. So good result, good action also is a means to purify the mind. It cannot be the be and end all of life. So a lot of people think like that. I think I discussed this also in the class. That be good and do good. बस बाकी कुछ ज़्यादा झंझट में मत पड़ो. But how can I be good when the ego is still there? The sense of limitation will remain. And is it not true that Arjun was a good person or not? Why did he collapse then? That is the unfairness of life, Swamiji. I have seen good people only suffer in life, I tell you. No, it is not like that. It is not enough to be good. It is very important to remove the cause of my sorrow, which is ignorance. So I have to be spiritually good and I have to be knowledgeably good. I cannot be ignorant and be good because I will suffer. Because the cause of my suffering is not knowing who am I. Hence the Gita was given not to make Arjun fight but to remove the cause of his suffering. So good action also is only having a limited relevance to make the mind pure. That's all.
Yeah, because incompleteness will still
Still remain.
after the good result also.
It has its importance, not that one should not do good actions, but it is not going to solve the main problem.
It is a means to something.
It's just a means. Yeah.
It is true and false, the sixth one, why is it false?
Vedas are called Paurushaya Grantha. They are not written by saints or authors. They are only compilations because they are revealed texts. Like if we say that Newton created law of gravity, is it correct? He discovered law of gravity. And he may have written it down in English language. But he is not creator of law of gravity. So, apaurushaya it is. It is a revelation. I also found that some answers have been copied. Some people copied. You may copy in exam, but moksha cannot be copied. And that moksha will depend on your clarity. So if you see the neighbor's paper and write, it is not going to help. Because moksha depends on my conviction. Tell me, do we live by knowledge or by conviction? We all live by our conviction, not by our knowledge. We know so many things, but we are not convinced by it, and even if we are convinced by it, we don't have the purity of heart. Chinmay was telling me, somebody called him and said, I want to join Vedant course, but the age limit there is, what, 60 years? 65?
60. Why would there be a limit?
Of course there has to be a limit for that, because otherwise it's difficult, because I'm going to give you all these tests and so many things. I don't expect somebody who is 65 and above and 70 and above to sit and remember and memorize. Bhagwan ka naam lo, Atma Chintan karo, bahut hai.
How rude is that?
It's not, that is enough.
I was rejected for that,
No, I am telling you that is more than enough. Why do you need to get into the technicality after 70 to remember so many things?
Yeah, it's gone.
That is not required, number one. Number two, I have limited space here. And I will have all elders sitting here after that.
But if they have the
You see, so that is a difficulty there, number one. Those are two aspects. And what is important there is, I raised this point because I said that somebody who called and he said, okay, the age limit is 65, but I am 68, can I just put 65 and come in? He said, for knowledge of Vedanta, where we have to have truth and integrity as the very means, वहाँ पर भी corruption कैसे हो सकता है?
Swamiji, some people might have their mind ready at the age of 70.
See, I have no problem about that, but I can't sit and test each and everybody's mind. As it is, just because of the age limit, people feel offended. where there is no need. No? There is a functional limitation for it. And there are so many other opportunities to learn or not. All the study classes are open for everybody to learn. All the Gita Gyan Yajnas are open for everybody to come and learn. So there is a certain purpose also. And you will see that when that age group is vast, from 18 onwards it goes to any age group, a lot of people who are younger then don't come. So many factors come into play.
The first section, fill in the blanks, number 9. I have written devotion plus knowledge is equal to gain. Now you marked that wrong. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, because there the question is wanting to test one particular understanding, that if knowledge plus action is equal to gain in things which we have not gained, then for self-knowledge what do you need? You only need knowledge. Now, if I write devotion there, if I write anything else there, surrender or humility, no doubt they are also helpful. But then that is not the point of that question. That's why the first line has been given in context. The knowledge plus action is equal to the gain. It is only to understand that much that I don't need karma for moksha. So our attachment to action is so strong that we keep doing. Even when we come to Vedanta, a lot of people will say, "Ah, ye sab bahut ho gaya, now you tell me what to do." Abhi karte rahenge, the result, you see this incompleteness cycle, that's why it's important to understand. That when I do any action, it will lead to a result. How will be that result? That result will be temporary or not? And can the temporary result give me a permanent state? It cannot. But whole life goes in acting.
But Swamiji, only knowledge will also not help, no? You have to act on it.
You have to act on it means what? You don't have to do something to be the self. You have to act on it there means you have to change your notion that I am this body, mind, intellect. That notion has to get changed. No? It is not some gross action that you have to do. Like go and sweep a street and feed the children. No such action has to be done. Nor is it an action which is to be done to become from negative to positive, which is a subtler action. That earlier I was very, very negative, now I have become more loving, more compassionate. Even that will not get me moksha. So what is required is only the very subtle action which we call as contemplation, in which I drop my false identification. I say I am Sat Chit Anand, I am not the body, mind, intellect, which I need to do by sitting quietly and withdrawing from all externalities. That's the only thing that will lead me to realization. Now, till that state comes where I am able to sit quietly and do anything, I may have to do selfless action, I may have to serve the society, I may have to do the puja or japa or anything, follow values. Those are preparations. For Brahma Vidya, no action is required. Only knowledge is enough.
But then to establish in self-knowledge also you require to be in a state where you can, meditation and all that is not required. It's
That's
just
what
the
I told
knowledge.
you, that sit and contemplate.
So that contemplation is like that. Meditation, then you have to sit for it, you have to do it. No?
So, but that is not equal to action.
That's not equal to
When we say action, what do people understand?
withdrawing from action.
That is withdrawing from action. No? That is withdrawing even from the basic action of the body. You withdraw. Even attention to the breath you withdraw. So if at all we call it action, that we call it as subtlest form of action where you become actionless.
So clarity of mind and purity, these are the two very important. How do we achieve that? Clarity of mind and
That's the word is giving you clarity. And purity will also come as you see the qualifications of Vedanta, what is required. Purity of mind will come, and I had explained at that time that purity of mind is equal to selflessness. How much selfless I am in the daily actions that I do, how much I think about giving, contributing, and less about what did I get and how much did I benefit, and the more I think about an altar of my service or surrender, the more selfless I become. So same work I can do, housework I can do dedicated to my family. Office work I can do dedicated to the profession or the company or the field or the country, anything. Where I is not encouraged, I becomes lesser and lesser. Okay, so done on the questions which were given in the test. Any other questions?
For the introduction, I have one question. In the introduction,
In the introduction, tell me.
on page 7 it says the new initiates, if they were to begin the text right away, it will be difficult. So that initiates, does it have significance?
It's just a newcomer. Initiation there doesn't mean some guru giving you initiation. It's just a meaning a newcomer.
Is it clear that there are three parts of moksha, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, and this is what we are running in the jnana yoga, something like that?
Moksha doesn't have any parts.
Or
They are different paths. The paths depend on emotional temperament of a person. Predominant emotional temperament. And each path has the other two. Like we said, bhakti is also there in this part. In Vedanta, if studying of Vedanta does not give me bhakti, then I have not understood Vedanta properly. And there will be seva because I need to do Nishkam seva to purify the mind. So each path has the other two in it. But predominantly depending on my temperament, I should choose what is the path that I take, because each path has its own steps. Like Vedanta has the steps and I have given you the knowledge cycle. See the handouts which I am giving you, you will have to bring them with you in every class. So you may file it or do whatever with it, but you please bring it, because at some appropriate time I will need to refer to those. So those are the knowledge steps which I have given to you. Bhakti also same way has steps. Yeah. Navada Bhakti is there, Navavida Bhakti is there, Ashtanga Yoga. Yoga has 8 steps. And Karma Yoga also has steps. So